Hello, my name is Nathan Wilson, and this is Storytime. And this is the story of that time I stole a dog. Most of these stories are my son Lucas. So this is Lucas. Hi, how's it going? I love you. If you're someone else, I think you're awesome. And please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Uh, this story I did steal a dog, and this is what happened. Um, when I was younger, I had a best friend, not best friend, a good friend, who lived in a different city than I did. He lived about an hour away in the big city of Little Rock, Arkansas. This was in the mid to late 90s. I was about 16, 17, and somehow my friend who was 16 or 17, he had his own house. I think someone had gave him this house. I think one of his relatives had died, and he started living in this house. He moved from our hometown to the big city of Little Rock, uh, and everything was going well. We'd visit him, have some fun. There were parties. It was great. And then one day he was riding along a road at night, or maybe it's during the daytime. I don't remember all the details. It was mid to late 90s, so I'm not sure of all the details now. But he got in a car accident and hurt his head, like really bad. It changed his personality a little bit. Um, it got more like fits of aggression and rage, which he had that before, but not as much. It became less sociable, and but during his recovery phase, someone thought it was a good idea to get him a puppy, a little dog to take care of, and he had that dog. And when we first, and my best friend and I would go visit him, and then he started acting very off, uh, off in a lot of different ways. But he started abusing the dog, and he would also abuse other people also. But they can just not go to his house if they don't want to. Um, and but this poor dog, uh, he would he would hit the dog and kick the dog and do things like that, and then he would just be in fits of rage about just abuse of the animal. Um, and it got to a point where it was like, I don't want to go over to his house anymore because he's doing that. And then I talked to my sister about it, how bad I felt for this. And she said, Nathan, you've got to steal his dog. You've got to take that dog from him. He's abusing the dog. He's. And I said, no, no, I don't want to take his dog. But then she's like, that dog is going to die if you don't take it. And I said, no, it's not that bad. And then my best friend, he was like, yeah, it is that bad. It's not just what we've seen. When he talked to other people in the friend group, and they were not okay with what was happening. That's why he wasn't having parties at his house anymore, because that level of abuse with this dog is kind of out of control. Um, so we made a plan that we would go to his house, spend the night there, and then leave in the morning and take the dog to my sister, who she goes in connection with the foster dogs, and she had fostered several dogs, and she could give the dog a new start in life. And so that's what we did. We went there to his house. We went there, and while we were there, he took the dog by his back leg and just hit the dog up against the door. And I about stood up and tried to stop him then. And and I was going to just beat him up and take the dog. But my friend was like, no, let's not do that. He has a head injury. If you beat him up, it could kill him. And let's let's just wait till he's asleep. Those weren't the words that he said. It was much more subtle than that at the time. But that's what I interpreted um, my friend's feelings to be. Uh, but we convinced him to stop leaving the dog alone. And then not only the abuse of grabbing it by the leg and hitting it up against the door, but there was also some essay against the dog, and we stopped that. We were able to stop him from doing that, but you can tell he had done that before, and he would do that again if the dog was still left in his care. So we all stayed there. We partied. Uh, Not really a party, but just as you can imagine, that's. But we stayed at his house that night, and I remember I woke up. My friend, he already had the dog in his hand. He said, "Wake up, wake up!" Um, he's like, "Let's go." And I woke up, and I was like, "Okay, let's go." And then I was like, My friend's not going to use any of these records either." And he's like, "No, you can't take his records and his dog. No, we're just taking the dog because the dog is being essayed uh, and and abused physically. So we can't. No, we're just taking the dog." Um, and so we left there. We left the door a little bit open, so maybe he'll think the dog ran away, and maybe it wasn't us who took the dog. Uh, and we took the dog um, to my sister's house, and she was able to take care of the dog. And turns out that dog had a large hematoma on the back of his head, and she had to get it to a vet right away to fix that hematoma. And she said the dog would have died within several days if that wasn't fixed. It hurts my heart even now hearing about that. Um, but the dog, he recovered, and then they were able, after he recovered fully, they were able to adopt him out and give him to a new owner. Which the new owner, he was really into golfing, and he'd go golfing with the dog, and the dog would run and get the golf balls and bring it back. And it turned out a really sweet story and beautiful story. And uh, that friend never found out that we stole his dog or anything, but uh, and he never got a new dog, so that's very good. No one would dare give him a dog after they saw how he treated the dogs. But he recovered a little bit psychologically and um, with all the issues, but he was never the same person after the accident. And I didn't. I knew him. He came back to our hometown later, but we didn't. He just hung out a few times. Didn't really mention that I stole his dog. Um, but that's my confession. That's what happened, and it was. I felt so bad for taking his dog, but how I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. You know. So that's how that is. All right, not a happy story, but yeah, it was It's a very good thing we did, but it's also a very trying thing we did. And that's what happened. All right. Bye.